More on taking control of digital storage with Jeff Carlson and some of Jeff's other adventures. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by our Patreon subscribers. Get access to the MacVoices Slack, the MacVoices Discord, MacVoices After Dark, and have your name listed at the end of each episode of MacVoices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. There's one other thing I know is in this book that is relatively new, and that's network attached storage. Mm-hmm. And I have kind of an on-off relationship with network attached storage. 1 minute, I love it. The next minute, not so much. And I just want to go back to Direct Connect. And some of it has to do with the fact that it is network attached, and therefore, depending on which vendor you use, it may be open to the internet. And there are security security issues that you have to jump through that you don't have with the Direct Connect device. And yet network attached storage can be so useful because it opens up a lot of the storage you have to when you're in another room in the house, or maybe, in another state. And so I wanted to just get you, without trying to do a full-blown tutorial on network attached storage, any thoughts on the goods and the bads of this?
Yeah, so that was actually a difficult section to write because it was hard to drill down into a lot of the details without having, Synology does it this way and another vendor does it this way. And so a lot of what's covered in the book is, I wouldn't say like a really high level, but some of it is what to look for when you're buying a NAS unit, and some of the situations that you would run into in terms of what it can do and what some of those like security things that you mentioned. So I have a Synology NAS that's I can't remember how old it is now, but it's it serves me very well. I know that I don't use it to its fullest capacity, just because it is a separate computer. It can do so much more. So like, I think trying to figure out how to answer your question. I mean, what the book does is it really sort of lays out what the options are and what things to look for and what things to specifically try to configure for kind of most situations. I still really like having a NAS. There are times, that I wish I could just plug it in, and some NAS units you can plug in directly, especially if you're working with massive video files, things like that. But it is like another thing you have to wrap your head around, not just how that particular NAS operating system works, but also, like how to transfer files over to it. What's the best way of doing that? Do you get one like mine? On occasion, when I've had like maybe some big video projects, I could transfer it over my home network. And like my home network is, I don't know, speedy enough, but I'm sure it's not, it's not state of the art by any means. So like it was easier for me to to offload everything onto an SSD. I want to say it was probably almost, 600, 800 gigabytes. Just a massive amount of data. It was easier to put those on an SSD and then plug the SSD into a USB port that was on the NAS and sort of, it's like modern SneakerNet, only I just had to reach from, like one end of my desk to the other end of my desk, but it still needed that, like it needed to be physically transported over to the NAS. And that just turned out to be a much easier way than to just have it, crank for, that amount of data. it would have taken hours. I don't know how many hours. And if you have an even faster network, and there's some discussion in there about like what Ethernet options are available on some of the NAS boxes. Sometimes you just get sort of like your regular. Sometimes you can get a higher speed version. So many questions. I don't think I have a good answer for you other than I'm sorry that it drives you crazy, but
I didn't really expect an answer, is because again, I've come to the conclusion they both have their place. It's just a matter of me having, because I'd love to just say, okay, I'm just going to go direct connect and that's it. And then I find out that maybe like a Plex server, now I no longer have an option for a Plex server to store my data on. And so, okay, no, I'm going to go the whole way over to NAS. And then just the kind of scenario you talked about, it's like, oh, why is it taking forever to copy this stuff over? So yeah, it's just, once again, you got to be educated as to what each option is and then figure out what it is for you.
Yeah. Well, and also because, I mean, some of these can get really expensive. I mean, there are definitely affordable NASs, but there are also some that, you will spend like $700-800 and you're just getting a box. You're not getting drives. And which drives do you put in it? Because there are hard drives that work better in a NAS setup, just because of the way they read data and the constancy, I think that's a word, of how the data is accessed, and also like what happens when one of those drives fails. Some things you can basically fairly easily just pop the drive out and put another one in, but then it has to do a bunch of internal stuff to shuffle data around and to make sure you're not going to lose any of that data. So yeah. Many questions. Here we are bringing up lots of questions and no good answers, but goodbye.
Well, but Jeff, I think these are the kind of questions people need to be aware. They need to know how to ask the questions and then come to the book and get the answers.
Yes.
Because otherwise, in fact, I'm sure there are folks out there that are going to say, what language are they speaking? Even the most tech savvy, because there's so many changes and they seem to be happening so fast. So that's why we need things like this, and they need to be updated on a reasonably consistent basis. Maybe not every 6 months, but they need to be, because it is changing that fast.
Yeah, exactly.
I had one other question I wanted to ask you, so I'm going to co-opt the interview for my personal benefit and maybe for the benefit of the listeners. But you're the perfect guy to ask because you've just written the book on digital storage. You're also a photographer. I'm not a photographer, but somehow I've play with them and play with cameras and all. And I have a lot of memory cards sitting around. Is there any danger? Is there a disadvantage to maybe sticking one of those in the slot on my MacBook Pro and using that as a storage medium, recognizing, I'll do this for you and then I'll let you go, recognizing it's not going to be the same kind of performance as an SSD or anything else. But if I just need raw storage on something that then maybe I could even pull over onto the SSD if I need to really work with it, is this something I should be trying, or am I just looking for trouble?
Yes and yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So I actually have, I talk about this in the book, because especially now you can get memory cards that are, up to, I know that there's at least 1 terabyte, and I may have seen even 2 or 4 terabyte cards that are either out or going to be out. But yeah, like that's a huge amount of storage. The problem is that you're not going to get very good performance out of it because it's not really intended to be a high speed data port. Like it's fast. It'll copy things over faster than, a lot of sort of regular USB speeds, but it's really meant for that for writing data and then reading it off. And this is the other part of this, which is like yes, you could do that. And in fact, there's even a company that makes, I want to say it's Transcend, it's in the book, that makes like a little module that sits in your MacBook Pro SD card slot, and it sits flush. So it's kind of like you're adding another hard drive. But the problem is with most of the regular memory cards, like you're going to get SanDisk or something that's designed for your camera. Like they're not really designed to do a lot of IO data, a lot of reading and a lot of writing. And so that can, I think, shorten the lifespan of the card because of the way it writes data to it. So yes, it can work, but I wouldn't use it as like an always, as a constant solution for like, hey, now I have 500 extra gigs of data. It's like you do, but I think you would probably notice, depending on what you're doing with it, like, going back to kind of the backup issue, if you're just using it to store extra stuff, it's probably fine. But if you are using it to like store a bunch of files and you're working with those files directly on a constant basis, then it would make more sense to move those over to your internal drive, which is going to be a lot faster, a lot more responsive, and really designed for that reading, writing swiftness, I guess you could say.
Okay. That's pretty much what I thought, because I've played with some of the lower capacities just because I had them laying around here. And other than performance issues, like you said, read and write speeds, I haven't seen any problems. But there is that little siren song, like you said, of a 1 terabyte card. It's like, wow, wouldn't it be great to have an extra terabyte in this thing? Even just for the things that I use, once every 2 months, but it's nice to have them right there when you need them. So okay.
Yeah, I would actually be more concerned about having it just sticking out the side of my laptop. So depending on if you're moving it around, or I mean, there's also the possibility that you have a like an external dock, like a Thunderbolt dock that has a memory card reader. I suppose that could also work. Probably not as fast as the one built into your laptop or your what, like, does the Mac Studio has one, not the Mac Mini. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So yes, I think for general storage, I think it's probably fine, just as long as you're, I guess, not treating it as if it's your internal drive. Maybe that's the best way of saying it.
I hadn't even thought about sticking one in an external dock. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You succeeded again in an interview giving me homework. That's just great.
More homework. You're going to go spend more money.
Yeah, exactly. So before we wrap up, and first of all, let's wrap the book and say that Take Control Books is where you go to get this. You guys, if you've listened to this show and you've listened to our interviews with Jeff, you know the shtick. There's some great prices on some absolutely indispensable materials. Jeff puts a lot of time into these, just as all the other Take Control authors do. And they're probably about as close to a definitive guide to the subjects as you can get outside of the manufacturer. In fact, sometimes the manufacturer don't even bother anymore. They just rely on people like Jeff and Joe to tell them what to do. So,
yeah. I will mention, just in terms of like the basic details, it's $14.99 for the book, and it's 165 pages. So this is by no means a slight book. And then, or if you you can get the book and Take Control Premium, which I think Joe has come and talked about.
Yes.
That's $22.49. So
yeah, perfect.
Just to get the basics out of there.
Yeah. And just like with everything else, the basics keep changing now that Joe has introduced Take Control Premium. So
yes,
if you're not familiar with that, go back and listen to the interview we did with Joe about the hows and whys. That's important. But I did want to catch up since it's been so long since we've talked. I know you have a little bit of a new gig, and I wanted you to talk about it and let us know what else you're doing and where else folks can find you.
Yeah. So, folks who would know me from like all my appearances here, I have basically been a freelance writer for most of my career, and now I have this thing called a real job, which is kind of astonishing. I know. For people who have real jobs, they're like, "Oh, come on, man! Just like, do you have to make such a big deal of it?" But it is for me because I've not had a real job, like a salaried job, in quite a while. So I'm a senior writer at CNET. So CNET.com, a site that your viewers probably already know, but it just covers technology in all forms. And so I write for the mobile team, and we're covering everything kind of mobile, from phones, and part of my duties is I'm also covering cellular plans and technologies. And so I've written quite a bit about T-Mobile and Verizon and AT&T and things like that. So yeah, that's where I'm spending most of my energy. But as you can tell, it's not all of my energy because I'm still updating my Take Control books. So right now I'm working on the Take Control of Apple Watch and Take Control of iPhone photography. Once we learn, next week, what the new iPhones are going to look like. So yeah, I'm still keeping myself very, very busy. I'm just also doing it through a company that pays me on a regular basis, which is kind of crazy. But it's been a great experience. And I know this is going to sound super cheesy, but the people that I work with are really great. And like, they're all really good writers or really good editors. We're super collaborative. And if you can imagine, basically I've been like a lone gun writing articles and books, and, obviously working with editors and all of that. But like, I work on a team now, which is a new, and so far has been super rewarding. So
that's really good to hear. And I love the fact that you take your credibility to them. CNET has always been a great organization, but it's because they retain people like you that already have a reputation, a positive reputation. Mm-hmm. I should make that clear. Yeah. There's many arrests mean nothing. But yeah, that you bring that credibility, so that if I see something from Jeff Carlson on there, it's like, yeah, okay, I know his work, and I'm going to pay a little more attention to it. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also been great because I'm doing a lot of other stuff outside of what I have done. So for example, like, one of the things that I recently published was I got actually, I can show it right here. I have a Pixel a Pixel 10 Pro XL. So this is Google's latest smartphone. This is an Android phone. And I recently did a photo comparison between what this does and the Samsung S25 Ultra. So I've been running around with Android phones, which is a new thing because I've never really needed to. I've just always been in the Apple ecosystem. So it's been a really great look, especially, me also being a photographer, seeing what technologies they're working on and what, Apple might implement based on that, and what they're picking up from Apple. And, just all like that side is just fascinating to me. So it's been a nice rounded experience.
Is it fair to ask just for a 30-second evaluation of the Pixel?
Yeah. So I like it. Actually, I've only really focused on the photo aspect so far, because that was just kind of my brief, my focus on doing this comparison. But I like it quite a bit. I can't see myself shifting full time to Android, because I've just been using iOS for so long, and every once in a while I'll just run into something here that, like, this makes no sense. Now, somebody who's been using Android for a long time would probably think that that was the most, basic logistical thing. But that's kind of how we are with our familiarity, right? But in terms of the cameras, I mean, in many ways, the cameras here are better than the ones on the iPhones. Just like they're higher resolution for some of the cameras. And at least in this case, and I'll send you a link to the article that I wrote about this. Like, they're doing some really interesting AI related stuff. And I know someone probably just rolled their eyes because I said AI, but I was right there with you. But it's not just like we're throwing AI into something because we need to show the investors that we have AI and stuff. The Pixel team at Google is like, they've thought long and hard about this, and they've been working on this for years and years. And so one sort of notable example is zooming. So you see this all the time. Somebody has their phone and they want to zoom in on something. And so they take their fingers and they like touch the screen and spread them apart to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. And what we as even casual phone photographers know is that once you get past the optical zoom limits, so like 5x on an iPhone is kind of the maximum. You can go up to 25x, and what it does is it's going to basically blow up the image to match what you want, and then it does some sharpening and some cleaning up, so it still looks fairly good. But that digital zoom is typically not nearly as good. So what Google has done is you can get a 100x zoom on this camera. And you think, well, that would just be kind of garbage because it's like a tiny, tiny bit of the sensor. And what it's doing is, once you get past 30x, it is using generative AI to effectively rebuild the image. So you end up with a sharpened, like in some cases, great looking version of that zoomed in image that there's no way you would have gotten on a smartphone otherwise. Now, the quality, can vary, especially depending on what you're shooting and the situations and all that. Sometimes it just doesn't look very good. But sometimes, it's not going to be something that you're going to put into a print, or maybe, certainly not like a portfolio. But when you want to zoom in on something far away and send it to your buddy or put it on Instagram, it's going to look pretty good. So it's that kind of stuff that they're doing some interesting things with. That was a lot more than you asked for, I know.
No, because actually I've seen the articles on the 100x zoom, and
yeah,
and the idea that they are using generative AI to do it, and so you get into the arguments with the purists about, well, that's really not taking a picture. That's that's generative AI. But on the other side, from a practical standpoint, if it's better than what you can get now, then why not use that? And
yeah,
maybe I'm stepping outside the boundaries of the article, but a lot of us have been doing that kind of thing, regardless of where the photo came from, with some of the third-party products. That I guess they're sort of doing the same thing. That they're taking that, what'd you say, 30x zoom or less, and building it up and sharpening it and make it, and it's like the results often are amazing. Sometimes it gets a little weird, but for the most part, if it's certainly worth trying. And so I would think the same thing is true here. My biggest concern would be that if I'm zoomed in at 95% according to the pixel, am I capturing something that's all I've got, or am I capturing one that would be that I could then manipulate later on a third party?
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, and actually, and the way they've done this has been interesting because it will give you both. It'll give you the generative AI version, but then it'll also give you the one that the image sensor captured and sort of sharpen in a traditional way. So you can go and work with that original if you want. So they made some smart decisions, and I think it'll be interesting to see if Apple even tries to go this way, or at the very least, Google is kind of saying, look, this is something that's possible, and maybe it'll work, maybe not, but here's another alternative that some people will use and some people will use and not even realize that it's doing it, because all they want is to be able to capture that thing that's far away, and they got the thing and it looks decent, and boom, that's all they need.
If you don't mind me saving myself a bunch of emails, because if I don't ask this question, I know I will get asked. Is that process being done on device, or is that being sent up to Google servers?
That is a fantastic question, and it is being done on device.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So then I could feel a lot better about whatever it is that I'm shooting, not being added to Google's collection of information and images.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Just geeking out just a little bit here at the end.
No, it's that is a totally important question to ask. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, it doesn't matter what I interview anybody about. It seems like there has to be a security question come up. It's the world we live in, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And no matter what you and I are talking about, it always comes back to taking photos. So
yeah, I
love this.
Absolutely. So we've already told us we can find you at CNET. Where else can find you, or can we find you, and any other projects you want to talk about?
Yeah, the best place is just jeffcarlson.com. Right now, what's occupying most of my time is CNET and Take Control. I also occasionally do photography work. I did a photo shoot for there was the Point Defiant Zoo in Tacoma. They have a fundraising dinner every year that I've shot for the last 3 years. So doing some event photography, things like that. But mostly, yeah, jeffcarlson.com is the place to go. And I try to keep it updated. But having a real job is a lot of work. I don't know if you know this. It's kind of tiring.
I heard something about it. Yeah.
So I'm still trying to find that balance. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I know you're working on some new Take Control books. You're always welcome here. We can't this many months go between interviews, so
we can't. No.
Let's both make. Well, they're not New Year's resolutions because we're not there yet. But just let's make resolutions if we connect a little more often.
What do you mean? The New Year just ticked over, right?
Yeah. Well,
it feels like it just did.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
Thanks so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
I love being on. Thanks, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Once again, takecontrolbooks.com. Go get Jeff's book on digital storage and educate yourself, because it has, I promise you, it's probably changed since the last time you paid any significant attention to it. And of course, now we have a new place to find Jeff at CNET. So cnet.com and search for him and you'll find all of his work. As to the Pixel, I'm not so sure, but that's, I'm an iPhone guy. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.